This is Bucket Talk, a weekly podcast for people who work in the trades and construction that aren't just trying to survive, but have the ambition and desire to thrive. The opportunity in the trades and construction is absolutely ridiculous right now. So if you're hungry, it's time to eat. We discuss what it takes to rise from the bottom to the top with people who are well on their way and roll up their sleeves every single day.
All right, welcome to this episode of Bucket Talk. We have Dominic Rosales, goes by the Instagram handle Poor Pumper Society, and he does everything sewage and septic. Welcome, Dominic.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Dude, this is the shit I want to get into. I am so excited
Literally,
about
right?
this one. Well, it's very we've covered a lot of big trades over the seasons that I've done this, and it's really awesome to like get into the shit, but like get in deep
Right.
on some of the stuff that, like, I mean, I got a septic system up here in Maine, and it gets pumped. We pump it yearly because we have it for the barn. So, but you know, I never stopped to ask, hey, how'd you get into it? Like, what do you do to start? How much money do you make? Is it good? Do you enjoy doing it? So that's why we have Dominic here today. Dominic, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. And yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So my dad, he worked at Kohler since I was born. So they had me right when my dad was 18. So pretty much got the call that I was about to be born. So he's like, oh, shit, I got to make money for my kid, right?
Yep.
So he gets hired on at Kohler, and at the time, that's like a really good paying job, get benefits. So he had been working there ever since I was born, and he finally got a bigger break and went to a rock quarry where he became a foreman. And then after that, he was on the side pumping out car wash pits. So for those of you that are unaware, every time you go wash your car, you see a pit in the middle of that car wash. That's where all the dirt and sediment gets washed into. Those have to be pumped out. I mean, they don't just disappear. So he would go in after work. So he'd work his full shift and then rent a trailer and go vacuum those out. And he did that for a long ass time, man. And eventually he got to the point to where he started getting all these contracts and got his own truck and started moving towards septic. So the car wash pit was kind of his introduction into the septic industry.
That's interesting because we had Safety Clean come out. So what I would end up doing was so in the shop we'd have the trenches that were full of sludge and
Right.
oil, you know, all the grease traps and stuff, so you're not, you know, polluting groundwater with, you know, transmission fluid and everything. But
Right.
Safety Clean wouldn't come out and do the trenches. What we'd end up doing is we'd go in there and scrape it all out, all the speedy dry, everything, and then put it in a 55-gallon drum, and then Safety Clean would come and suck it out. So,
Okay.
I trust me, I've been in some nasty situations myself. But how did you get involved with what you do today?
So my dad had got his first truck after he's renting it for a while, and business started picking up. And at the time, I was actually working in an office. So I was sitting at a desk all day processing Medicare and retirement health insurance claims, if you can believe that. So I was doing that, and he reached out to me. He said, you know, I'm really starting to grow, and I kind of need help. So if you ever get the itch, like, come help your old man, move on down, you got a job. So I did that. I put in my 2 weeks right when he told me that, actually. So I went from the office to pumping literal shit. Yeah.
So what's cool about you though is it's not only just pumping shit, but you have an intimate knowledge of different styles of septic systems and cesspits and what have you, versus just actually going in there and pumping it out. Like, I've seen some of your videos, and I didn't realize, like, I just thought it was a hole in the ground, like a chamber in the ground. You know, the cover that I always uncover is the wrong one for my own. So,
Okay.
but then you got a leach field, obviously,
Right.
and then the basic knowledge for me is like, no feminine napkins, no like wipes, no nothing. Other than that, I know nothing about a septic system. So I mean, how'd you gain all that knowledge? I mean, you're behind the desk, and all of a sudden you're like, boom, 2 weeks, I'm gonna pack it up and I'm gonna go make a living doing this.
Trial and error. So,
Yeah.
most of these people, I feel, that get into the trade, as soon as they get into it, most of them are leaving a traditional job and starting their own business. So, I mean, it's my dad's business, so of course I want to learn as much as I can and be informed on the topic I'm working on. So, to be honest with you, when I left that job, I didn't even know what septic tank was to start off with. I mean, I had lived in the city my whole life. I mean, it's a small town, but we were still on city sewer. The people on the outskirts, they're all on septic. So then I started getting into it, and I was like, okay, first job, I had to locate myself, kind of get a rhythm of that. And now, after about 5 years of doing that, I kind of have a general idea of basic systems. But even now, there's more and more technology coming out into the industry to pretty much the point where you have your own mini wastewater treatment plant at your house.
Yeah.
That's these aerobic systems with the spray units and the drip units. It's really progressing quick.
That's crazy, and I mean, you never know what you're gonna get. I mean, some of these old houses still have like wood. I'm sure most of them are gone now, but the wood septic systems. I think mine is concrete.
Concrete, yep.
But now they're putting in these big PVC units, just dropping it in, and I mean, there's a ton of technology out there, and it's cool because there's a science behind it. Like people think that you just, you poop and then it gets sucked out and some of it drains out into your yard and whatever. But like now, I mean, there's so many different bacterias and I mean, it's almost like, yeah, like you said, a mini ecosystem that if you screw it up, you're going to be pumping more frequently. But if you get it right and you take care of it, it'll last you a long time. Is that correct?
Right. So a bunch of these, kind of what you were talking about earlier, like the cesspits. So the cesspits, what they would do is they would dig a hole. Some of these soils here in Central Texas, it's rock.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they couldn't even dig, so they just blast with dynamite. So they'd pop a hole open in the ground, and these cesspits, they just stack up concrete rings. So these concrete rings, they didn't have a concrete bottom, so that waste is just soaking through the bottom of that. So you got to imagine a bunch of these houses around the country, they got wells, there's groundwater. Not necessarily the best thing you want going into your groundwater. So now here in Texas, cesspits, they're outlawed. The main thing with septic systems is you're trying to protect the groundwater and you're trying to protect all your natural water resources. So these aerobic systems are coming into play now where the effluent or the sewage is being treated inside of the septic system. And then by the time it's sprayed out into your yard, I mean, you can't drink it, but it's treated enough to where it's not going to cause harm to anybody in the area.
Now, actually, when you say spray, you actually mean literally sprayed, because now they
Spraying,
have
yep.
irrigation systems that are using that, or is it like an early morning combination? I didn't understand that. I didn't know if like the kids are running through the sprinkler and you're like, what?
So like in my videos, I always post like that joke about the kids like playing in the sprinklers. You don't want to do that in Texas. I mean, it's not going to get them sick, but it's not necessarily the best idea. So these aerobic systems, they do a really good job. So what they introduce, or in the name aerobic, is they have a chamber in the system that is aerated, so it's pushing in air and creating this aerobic bacteria. So whenever people in the city flush a toilet, it runs through the sewer system and gets to a water treatment plant.
Yeah.
Now, in that water treatment plant, there's a long process where the solids are taken out, the liquid is treated, and then it's dropped back into a natural water source, which is usually a creek or a river.
Yep.
And most people in the comments that I've been seeing, they're grossed out. They're like, why are they doing that? And I mean, water is a vital resource, and you can't just instantly make more of it. So we're recycling it the best we can. And actually, some of these wastewater treatment plants, the water that comes out of there after it's treated is sometimes better than the river or the creek it's being emptied into.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't gross me out because I guess I have a little bit more of an intimate understanding of this stuff. But I mean,
right.
Even down to like the gray water systems. So when you look at like brushing your teeth, right now they have you brush your teeth or you wash your face, and now they have sinks that could go into the tank of your toilet. and now you could actually flush with that secondary, that gray water, right?
Right.
And then after that, then it becomes wastewater. I mean, some can argue that brushing your teeth and stuff, saliva and what have you, could be considered wastewater. But generally speaking, you know, just runoff or what have you is usually gray water. And then you have your wastewater, which is, you know, shit and whatever. But yeah, exactly. I mean, we were on a ship, and that's what we did. We'd pump sewage out. I mean, right out into the ocean, and but we were miles out, and then the ecosystem would take care of those solids, and you know, it's not like everybody's out there swimming in a ocean full of poop.
Right. You're right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool. But the sprinkler thing kind of got me too. I'm like, that's interesting. That's a new one for me.
Right. And I mean, here in Texas, when you have an aerobic system, they have to be inspected. So you've got these maintenance providers that are going around checking the solids level in these tanks, because the fact that you're spraying potentially hazardous waste out into the ecosystem is something you do want to get inspected. I mean, I always get tons of comments saying like, "Oh, I thought you were all about freedom and this and that." I was like, yes, I get that, but at the same time, you don't want sludge and stuff being sprayed out, especially when you got neighbors and stuff like that. So
You know, and I don't want to blow up your spot, but what is your thought on that system? Do you think that it's really good and we should get behind it, or is it something that you think it could be flawed in the future, that it could potentially cause problems if systems aren't operating properly, or are there enough safety features in place that you're not going to go out to like wastewater just being sprayed on your yard? You know what I mean?
right. So when you get an aerobic system installed in your home, they do have a junction box. So there are several alarms in place. So there's an alarm if the aerator isn't functioning properly, that will sound. It's very annoying and loud. And then you've got a bright red light. So the aerator is the main part of the system that is going to treat the wastewater. That way, when it's sprayed out, it doesn't smell and it doesn't have that harmful bacteria.
Cool.
And then the pump is the piece that actually sprays it out. So if the pump isn't working, that's going to sound the alarm as well. There's actually a high water alarm float in that compartment of the tank. So if the water level ever gets above that, it's going to sound the alarm and tell you like, hey, you need to call somebody, come check that.
Cool.
Where it is flawed is that some people will just mute it and just carry on. So it's kind of like when you're driving a car and you've got all these check engine oil, all this and that. Just ignore it.
Just a little piece of electrical tape right over it, and you're good to go.
Out of sight, out of mind. But then when you got a whole lake of sewage in your yard, then it becomes an issue. So that's the biggest issue I've seen, is just people will put it off and put it off until it's a major issue. But I will say the pros of the aerobic system is the main types of soil they're installed in is a soil that doesn't absorb the effluent the way it's supposed to. So I'm sure at your home you probably got good soil if you got like a traditional drain field.
Yeah.
Here in Central Texas, some of these soils, it's mainly clay. You got a lot of rock. So if you're running trying to run a traditional drain field, that effluent that's coming out of the septic tank is not going to drain the way it should.
Yeah.
So then what will happen is, since that water has nowhere to go from that leaching system, it's just going to fill up the tank and then back up in the home. So that's where these aerobic systems come into play. Since it can't leach through the soil through a conventional system, then you spray it out, or you have a drip system. And those drip systems, they're mainly in play for homes that are kind of limited on space. So you've got these spray systems. So if you don't got a lot of room for that sprinkler to spray, then you just do a drip system. So that's a subsurface application. So it goes through it's treated, then it goes through a pump, and it comes out of like these little irrigation tubes right below the soil.
All right, so I feel like this was more for my mental knowledge. I feel like we went super in depth on septic systems. So let's lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
So if anybody's watched your videos, You pop the cover of a septic system and
Right.
it is just poop there. And you have, I mean, from where I'm from, it's almost like an ice auger, but you
Yep.
got this poo macerator that you stick in the
Yeah.
hole and you whip up a poo smoothie. I mean, tell us a little bit about like the day to day, like how much do you find in septic systems? How often should somebody pump? Just some basic high level stuff.
Right. So here in Texas, they recommend every 3 years you want to pump it out. Now, this is always a hot topic because you've got everybody telling you, well, I've lived in my house 20 years, I've lived here 15 years, I've never had it pumped out, and I haven't had an issue. Well, the thing is, solids will build up in your tank and eventually make it out to your drain field. Now, if you have a conventional drain field, you want to keep that lasting as long as possible, and the best way to do that is keeping the solids out of it, and the best way to
Yeah.
prevent that is pumping it. Now, when these people wait that long to pump it out, the solids are going to build up in the tank and get to the point to where it actually starts backing up in the home. So most of these calls we get, I've got literal sewage backing up in my bathtub. How fast can you get out here? So most of the time we already have a full schedule, so we'll try and get in these emergency calls. So
Yeah.
we show up to the house. 9 times out of 10, they don't even know where it's at. So then I got to kind of do some exploratory digging and probing, and then pop open.
I want to stop you
Okay.
there because that's actually. So I was fortunate enough to have the plans for my house.
Yep.
When I bought it, so I kind of knew the general vicinity. It was like oak tree, like this is. But for
Right.
you, do you got to like crawl in the cellar and you're looking at like outlet pipes and you're like, it's got to be, X distance from this house projected that way. Like, you're not out there in a shovel just like trying to poke around figuring out where this thing is.
No. So luckily here in Texas, most of the tanks are pretty shallow. So the deepest we've had to dig was maybe like 3 feet. Usually you can see a dead spot in the grass. That's where I usually check first. They're supposed to have a sewer clean out, so we'll go from the sewer clean out. We do have locating equipment, so if worst comes to worst, I'll run that sewer camera and then locate where the inlet is on the septic tank. But if it's backing up, that becomes an issue because if I pop open that cap, sewage is going to come up. So we've kind of got a rhythm down where if we can't find the septic tank and it's backing up, I'll pop open that lid, pull vacuum, clear the line, and then run my sewer camera out. But I've gotten pretty good to where I can locate most of these septic tanks just with a soil probe.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So, what's the coolest thing that you found in a septic system that somebody shouldn't have flushed? I've seen the grate where you guys pump it out, and there's that there's all sorts of like cars and toys and what have you. But you've had to find something freaking crazy.
So I found a Dr. Pepper truck, like a little model Dr. Pepper truck, and it was so big, there's no way they could have flushed it down the toilet. Somebody had to pop the lid open to that septic tank and throw it in there. But we were able to pull it out, and we actually rinsed it off and gave it back to the customer. They left it outside. They didn't take it inside, but there's a little Dr. Pepper model truck. And then Lightning McQueen, dude. I don't know if you see my videos of when I'm emptying the truck, but Lightning McQueen.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Lightning McQueen is the most dropped toy down the toilet I have found.
That's crazy. That's great, but nothing creepy, nothing like weird, just straight normal kid stuff.
So you find, I mean, I hate to say it, but like you go into some of these trailer parks where you don't know who it's coming from.
You
Needles,
find pokey thingies, yeah.
Yeah, you get those rubber bands, and I mean, I don't think there's a lot of diabetics in the trailer park. You catch my drift.
I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Does that worry you, or are you super protected and like it's not a big deal? You got it down to a science. You got a tool to take it out and a way to dispose of it properly, or is it like I mean, I would hate to like go in a hole blindly and then all of a sudden pull my hand out and I got
Right.
hypodermic needles stabbing my hand, and then you're like, fuck.
Right. Yeah. No. So this particular job where we saw like a bulk of the needle. So of course we pop open the lid, so we're able to see kind of like a general idea of what's going on in the tank. But this one was so bad, we just denied service. I mean, it was a rental property, so we called the property owner. We told them and sent them pictures. Like, look, I mean, this is a risk to us. We're not even sure if the treatment plant we take this to will even accept this.
Mhm.
So I think that tank actually had to be kind of like
Be pulled out of the ground.
decommissioned because
Yeah.
nobody would pump it out.
So how do you decommission a tank? Do you just kill it and let it just sit there, or
Yeah, so
I mean, maybe I'm asking a trade secret I shouldn't.
no, you're fine. So like you have to talk to your disposal plant. So
Yeah.
if we're about to maybe pump something out that we're not sure of, we'll call them first. We're like, hey, we're pumping this out. This is what's in it. We're pretty sure this is what's in it. Like, will you accept this? And then if they say yes, then we'll go ahead, pump it out, and dispose of it. But I'm not sure who took that over. But I'm pretty sure they had to like kind of jump through hoops to get rid of that, and then put in a new system. It was rough, and I mean, it sucks for the property owner. But then again, if you have so many properties, you don't know what your tenants are dropping in. Wipes, that's the biggest thing too that's been dropped in.
All right, so flushable wipes. Are they flushable on septic systems?
Okay.
See, because I had this debate at my own barn. I have people that use so I have a barn that we have people in and out riding horses and what have you.
Yeah.
So it's not just my family. So I can't just instill like, hey, don't do this. But we've had a debate within the barn. Flushable wipes are not flushable in the septic system. I don't want to run the risk, but you're the expert.
Right. So here's what I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
I've pumped out probably 3 or 4 septic tanks a day for the past 5 years. And I always ask the customer, like, what are you putting down the toilet? Like, because I'm generally curious. I'm like, I want to know what's causing it to get to this point. So I had, in particular, an aerobic septic system. I pumped it out. And then I got a call from the same customer a year later, and they're backing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up, and I'm talking to them like, dude, I was just here. Like, this is a big system. Like, why am I here a year later? Like, how are y'all backing up? And when I popped open the caps, it was so thick you could probably stand on it. And then he told me what he'd been using, flushable wipes. Him and his wife, they've been flushing them down. And I don't know if you've went and checked the labels out on them lately, but if you look at the flushable wipes, when you turn it over, they now have a label on there that says they're flushable under these conditions. Like the septic system is inspected and pumped out frequently, yada, yada, yada. But I feel like that was added recently because everybody's having these issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks that it's so misleading to the point to where they're just like so comfortable throwing all these down the septic system, but you're going to ruin your septic system. And then we come in and we tell them, it's like, look, you got all these wipes in the tank. And then they tell us, like, it's flushable. And then we tell them, well, we have to charge you this much more because we have to manually remove these instead of just pumping out a system for maintenance. They're hell on all these wastewater treatment plants. I don't know if you've seen that side of it, but they're dealing with it as well. I mean, they clog up the sewer lines. They clog up the treatment plants. It's a nightmare. They break these pumps, and I mean,
so don't they use macerators before they get to the treatment plants to just like grind up as much solids as they can? Or
right? And even those get clogged up with those wipes.
No shit.
Yeah.
So for people who are listening, a macerator is just like a whole bunch of teeth that grinds up all these solids. So
it's like a muffin monster. I think that's one of the brands that has these. There's a specific brand called Muffin Monster. Yeah, that's what it is. It just grinds up everything as much as it can. But
before it hits the pump, because these pumps are actually, even though they're industrial and what have you, they're still subject to punishment. And you know, a lot of these pumps can't take the sheer volume of solids coming through it. So the smaller the particles, the better off the pump will be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I follow a couple of them on TikTok. It's really cool with social media how you can kind of see, because I'm strictly with the septic pumping, so it's cool seeing like the other side where we dispose of it, and all these people having to deal with this, all these flushable wipes, tampons.
You don't watch like pizza making videos or something. You just continue the cycle.
No, I do. You know, of course, Barstool, the One Bite, Dave Portnoy's the pizza reviews.
Dave
Yeah, I watch
Portnoy.
those.
I was gonna say, I was like, yeah, but you gotta at least wash your hands before you do the 1 bite challenge, right?
Yeah, for sure. I got a little hand washing kit. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I mean, when you work in this industry like this, I mean, everybody that I've talked to or everybody I've seen is like, we're so desensitized to it, and I feel like we're actually kind of immune to a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's probably dumb to say, but I mean, I'm out working with it every day, and of course, I wash my hands. If anything, I'm probably more conscious of hygiene than just a normal person. I mean, I've gone into the restroom several times, like after work. If I'm going to sit down and eat, I'll wash my hands, and I'll see, I mean, out of the corner of my eye, somebody go use the bathroom, come out and just walk right past me. I'm like, are you serious, man? Like, what the hell? It's like, I pump out septic tanks and you're not even going to wash your hands?
So
It's crazy.
I'll back you up a little bit because, you know, as a mechanic, I mean, these hands never got clean, and
Right.
it's
Like,
funny.
pristine clean, right?
My nemesis was that white bread sandwich, because
Oh, yeah.
you never wanted to like re-grip, because when you re-grip that sandwich, you saw your fingerprints on the last grip that you had. So
Mhm.
you're like, I'm eating an oil sandwich, and you're like, I don't give a shit at this point. I mean,
Right.
I'm pretty sure either I'm gonna die early or I'm gonna have the most robust immune system ever.
Dude, I'm telling you, I feel like my immune system is like on steroids, because I don't get sick. I mean, everybody that I know in the industry does not get sick. I mean, if I ever see like a post or something, because we're in all these groups, if I see somebody in the industry get sick, I'm like really concerned, because it's got to be something like life threatening,
Yeah.
because we don't get sick. I mean, we're outdoors all day. I get plenty of vitamins. I mean, I try and stay healthy myself just with my diet and exercise, but I mean, I'm working outside all day and taking in the sunlight, and I feel like that's helped me out health wise.
So was this a good life change for you? I mean, you're one of the few people I've had on that have gone from a desk job to out in the field.
Right.
So is this, you know, and not every path or every whatever you have, every journey is for everybody. But for
Mhm.
you, was it worth it, or you sit there and go, hey, maybe the grass wasn't greener?
So I'll tell you, man, like when I first left high school, I was going to college, and I was going to college full time, and I was working at a truck wash. So I've been doing manual labor since I was a kid. So eventually I left that and started working in an office, and then just sitting at a desk all day, man. It's like you're constantly being micromanaged by people. And me, it's like I will always find a way to get the job done the fastest and most efficient. So it's like I'm sitting there at the desk all day. I feel like I could have got all my work done in a few hours, but I'm still stuck there, like kind of just trying to stay busy. And then it caused a lot of back pain sitting at a desk all day. It's like, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but to me, it's like I'd rather be outside on my feet all day than sitting down, because it just doesn't feel natural. So I had like really severe back pain, and then that got fixed from working outside.
Yeah, I mean, I've done both, and summer. It's crazy because, you know, now my aches and pains from my knees and my feet and my
Right.
back from climbing in and out of trucks
Mm.
and doing all this stuff are gone. But on the flip side, I mean, supposedly a desk job is the new smoking. So it's like, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
I read a few articles,
Okay.
and so I mean that worries me because, yeah, for 8 hours you're sitting there, you know, grinding away doing your job, and then you realize you haven't gotten up, you haven't walked, um, you know, so it there is a lot of pros and cons of things. You know, a lot of people in the trades, or a lot of parents that were in the trades that were talking to their sons and daughters were like, you know, you're going to have back issues, you're going to have shoulder issues, you're going to be hurt, you know, arthritis, I mean, hands and all that stuff. But then on the flip side, like, we go from one extreme to the other, to where now you're immobile for 8 to 12 hours a day, right? And then you get up and now you have high blood pressure, you know, risk of diabetes and what have you. So it's almost like we need to meld the two. It's a little bit of a break and a little bit of work and a little bit of a break. I don't know. I don't know what the happy medium is there, but it's kind of interesting. Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I work a very physical job. I'm constantly having to dig, drag hoses, and then of course I'm sitting down driving from job to job. But I try and make time the best I can to kind of stretch and do exercise outside of work. Just because I understand it's a very physical job and it's probably going to really have an impact on my body. So I want to keep it as solid as I can for as long as I can, and not really try and stress it too hard. Just keep it really strong.
All right. Last technical question.
Okay.
Has there been a job that's grossed you out, or are you immune to them all?
Okay.
Like,
so,
just like
yeah, I got
puking
you.
on the job site.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I always say it smells like money, because usually the worse it smells, like the more we're getting paid. So like grease, we do a lot of grease traps, and that smells terrible. Way worse than human waste. Believe it or not, restaurant grease traps, they smell terrible. So, RVs, the tanks on the RVs, those are the number one worst smelling thing. So we had this particular job. I'm not going to mention any names or location. So we get a call. This this property owner says, "Hey, I've got an RV. It's backing up on me. I don't know what's going on." So we showed up, and this guy had been living in this RV, and he'd been dumping that tank into storage tanks for several years. You can imagine one guy living alone, several storage tanks of this stuff, sitting out in the sun, contained, no oxygen coming into these tanks. So we're set to pump all of them. So I got the vacuum running, and I pop open the lid to the first storage tank he had, and I'm telling you, like, that was the first time I had ever dry heaved, and I felt like I was about to puke. Like, it never happens. I mean, septic tanks, grease traps all day, but these RV storage tanks, they've been sitting out. I mean, I'm still scarred. Like, I'm only getting sick just thinking about it. Like, that's how much of an impact it had on me.
I had just to make you feel better. My worst story, my worst smell as an auto mechanic was an RV.
I'm telling you, dude. Oh, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but mine was a little bit different. We had one come in on a wrecker.
Yep.
Supposedly they were on base. We had an Air Force base near us, so it was a big to do because the wife was upset and everything. So we had police there and all this stuff. I don't know what happened with that side of things, but my boss said fix the brakes and we'll get it the hell out of here.
Right.
So I had to get into it on the street and drive it into my bay. I got into I opened up the door, and I instantly started throwing up in the parking lot. It was the whole place. I have video of it somewhere, but it was a hoarder's RV.
Oh no!
There was eggshells on the ground, and I was just like, and still to this day, it baffles me why I even did what I did. But I went back, I grabbed a Tyvek suit, and I grabbed the respirator, and I drove it. I did the whole thing, and then they wanted us to deliver it. And I'm like, I'm not fucking delivering this thing. I go, not to mention you want me to drive it through the gate. I go, on an Air Force base. I go, I don't care. The minute I roll down that window and say, I'm here, like, they're going to think this is like some sort of terrorist activity.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, it was something from like a Walter White meth video. It was awful. It was it was the funniest thing because you know how it is in the trades. It's like
Right.
it's like guys are like, you won't do it, and I'm like, I'll do it, and you're like throwing up as you're trying to get into the truck. And
Yeah.
it was awful. It was the worst thing I've ever been a part of. But we got it done. I mean, we get it done always.
Yeah,
we always get it
you
done.
got to. You can't give up.
No, you can't give up. And then now you got that badge. Now you got that story.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So all right. Outside of work, what do you like to do?
So, believe it or not, I like to play Pokemon Go. Me and my girl, that's what I like to do in my free time. My free time is kind of taken up a lot by just like making videos now because I mean I'm working my full-time job.
Yep.
I'm trying to grow the company, and then I'm doing the whole social media video editing thing right after. So it's like I'll work a full day and then edit right after that, and then try and live my life as much of it as I can. So
your job is now. Correct me if I'm being naive here, because I have a couple of kids. I'm not huge in the Pokemon, but I'm trying it. Is your job like suitable for Pokemon Go? Isn't it like you're supposed to catch things in all different areas of your area?
Yeah. So what's cool about it is I have an auto catcher. So I mean, everybody always clowns me because I have an Apple Watch on the job. It's like, dude, take that watch off while you're working with that. But I take calls and stuff when I'm out in the field. I try and be as hands-free as possible.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is movement. So like Pokemon Go, it's like trying to get people to be active. So you actually benefit from walking a lot. So on average, I probably walk like 7 miles a day with my job. Wow. So that really helps out in the game. And then afterwards, of course, I'm trying to be as active as possible. So we're just out walking in the parks and stuff. And
just catching Pokemon out in people's backyards, right?
Yeah, no. we mainly try and stay in public areas. We travel a lot too. And I mean, the cool thing about this industry is, I mean, everybody is keeping up with me, and they're like, if you're ever in this area, hit me up. So, I mean, I've met septic pumpers and installers from Washington, Tucson. Anytime I'm passing through the area, they're like, come on, man, like, let's have a drink. Let's grab some food. So, I mean, it's just really cool, man. It's like, I like awesome. Traveling and meeting up with all these people because I'm one to like where I always want to learn more. So even though we may not be in the same terrain, or I can always take something from them and learn and put it to use in my day-to-day job.
Awesome. So we're at the end of the show. If anybody dares to want to join the pumping society, the brethren of pumpers out there, where can they reach you? Where can they, we talked about your Instagram handle, which is Poor Pumper Society, but if they wanted to know more and they were genuinely interested in it, in a career in your field, how could they get a hold of you, ask you questions, and anything else you want to plug?
So Facebook is Poor Pumper Society as well. TikTok, they banned my first account, so I'm on my second account. Yeah. And the crazy thing I will tell you, which really pissed me off, is they made a compilation of all my most viral TikTok videos and shared it on their the official TikTok Facebook page. Okay? And then they banned me right after that with no explanation. They just took down my account. So like, okay, whatever.
Gotta get rid of the competition.
I don't know what happened, man. But yeah, it's Poor Pumper Society 2 on TikTok. And then I've got a YouTube channel. It's Poor Pumper Society. And then just comment. I go through my comments as best I can. I try to make videos to answer questions. But if you really want to get in this industry, just look in your area. I mean, people don't realize that this is actually a necessity in society. They think that everything just disappears when you flush the toilet. That's not the case. I can tell you here in Texas, from 2021 to 2022, we saw a 1 million increase in septic systems. So you got to imagine that there's a lot of business and a lot of money to be made in this industry right now. So if you're really serious about getting into it, contact your county, see what licenses you need, where you can dispose of it, and just start asking around. I mean, that's the best thing I can tell you is my dad didn't know anything when he first started. He was just asking questions. And if you're not afraid to get out and ask, people in this industry are more than willing to help you out. That's one thing I will say about this industry is that they're some of the best people. I mean, they don't see you as competition wanting to show you out. They want to help because, I mean, there's more than enough work to go around.
Awesome, awesome. So your sign off is smells like money.
Smells like money. Hell yeah.
And as a special thanks to our loyal listeners, we're giving $10 off your next purchase of $60 or more at BRUNTWorkwear.com. Use discount code BucketTalk10. That's BucketTalk10.